What it do, snackers, snackettes, and snack X's? Your boy Gage here with the homie Jokes.
Yo, yo.
And you are now tuned in to Loading Snacks Weekly, where we get together once a week and we talk about things that are happening in pop culture. And today,
Today,
boy, do we got them lined up today, Jokes. Today we got to talk about what is going on at Xbox. Phil Spencer's retirement, Sarah Bond resigning, Asha Sharma taking over, Matt Booty getting promoted. Like, there's a lot happening just in that space. We're gonna talk about PlayStation closing down Bluepoint Games, and we're gonna get into Jokes' top 5 Pokemon. This is all time, right? This is top 5 all time. Is that how we're doing that?
yeah, I think this is
Top
all
5
time
all
right
time.
now.
Okay. But look, before we get into that, Jokes has a
Mm-hmm.
job to do. He'll get the link to our website up so you can go there, check that out, see what we're up to, follow us across all social media, and support us on Patreon, which is really the best way to support us. If you can do it monetarily, it is so helpful for us. And on that note, it's time for the 619 Hall of Fame.
Yeah, so let's shout out our top tier patrons, starting with Anthony Cunningham, Marcus Houston, Susan Dortch, Tyrone Carson, Meticulous Skin, Alex Lee, Ellis Mbe, and Kermit Ferguson. Thank you very much. We truly, truly appreciate it.
Indeed, we do. Jokes,
Yes, sir.
hook me up.
Number one.
You know, Jokes, what a week.
Yeah.
Look, Friday, I'm just gonna say it this way: all hell broke loose in the gaming land. So Friday we got news that came out of Microsoft that Phil Spencer, who's been the head of Xbox really since the beginning of Xbox One, he kind of took over after the debacle that was the introduction of the Xbox One, is retiring, not just from Xbox, but from Microsoft. And Phil has been at Microsoft for 38 years. So it's not, it's not a slight thing. It's not something small. But the way that it came out was very abrupt and kind of seemed out of left field because
Very
on
much so.
Friday they were like, yeah, Phil's retiring on Monday. And Sarah Bond, who was really acting as the president of Xbox at the time, who, for all intents and purposes,
That was number
from
2.
everything we could tell, she looked like she was being positioned to be the person to take over for Phil when Phil left. They seem to be grooming her for that position for the last few years.
Very much so.
They're like, she's resigning, and Asha Sharma, who was initially running like an AI division at Microsoft, and has only been at Microsoft for 2 years, mind you, is taking over in Phil's place. And Matt Booty, who also has been at Xbox for a very long time, got promoted, but clearly not to Phil's position, which he was the next likely person I would expect to be the person to take that position. So before we kind of get into all the behind the scenes and kind of, all of that, what were your initial thoughts hearing that news Friday? I think I sent you a text.
Yeah, you did. I was shocked. Okay. Hearing that Phil Spencer was retiring, because of his long tenure and things with the company, I was kind of like, it is out of the left field, but you know what? Hey, listen, dude has been there for a very long time, has contributed to a lot of stuff. I'm like,
Right.
Okay, cool. You know what? He's decided that, he's done everything that he wanted to do, set out. It's time to go ahead and hang things up. Cool. And when you said that, I was like, yeah, that means Sarah Bond's stepping up. I was like, okay, let's do this. She's been doing everything. She's been in the front. She's been, on stage doing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh, she's already set for this. And it was like the next message right afterwards. It was just like, pretty much, it was like, oh, by the way, uh,
It did kind of
Sarah
feel
Bond,
like that, didn't it?
Sarah Bond is resigning from her position. Now, once I heard that, I was like, oh, this, like, initially, this is like, oh, this doesn't sound good. Like, to have your
Right.
your top two, just stepping aside like this. This sounds like that something major has unfolded to just so abruptly. If they just said, you know what, Phil Spencer's retiring, you know what, he's going to be here for another 5 months while we oversee the transition of power from him to the next person. No, Monday. I'm just like,
Well, I mean, they did kind of say that.
yeah,
They said that he is retiring, but that he's
mm,
staying on, like, to help out.
yeah,
And Sarah Bond kind of said the same thing. Let's get into that. Here's what I want to do. I want to read from the statement on Microsoft's website
mm-hmm.
About what happened. And this came from it again, it's on Microsoft's blog. So Asha Sharma named EVP and CEO Microsoft Gaming. Satya Nadella left a message. I mean, I guess I could read that. Satya Nadella, who is the CEO of Microsoft, says gaming has been a part of Microsoft from the start. Flight Simulator shipped before Windows, and you can practically ray trace a line from DirectX in the 90s to the accelerated compute era we're in today. As we celebrate Xbox's 25th year, also just to say, jokes, a keynote, because it also is the 25th year of Xbox. I don't know. It just seems like there should be some pomp and circumstance around Bill Spencer leaving, but I digress. As we celebrate Xbox's 25th year, the opportunity and innovation agenda in front of us is expansive. Today, we reach over 500 million monthly active users, are a top publisher across all platforms, and continue to innovate across gaming hardware, content, and community in service of creators and players everywhere. I am long on gaming and its role at the center of our consumer ambition as we look ahead. I'm excited to share that Asha Sharma will become Executive Vice President and CEO, Microsoft Gaming, reporting to me. Over the last 2 years at Microsoft and previously as Chief Operating Officer at Instacart and Vice President at Meta, Asha has helped build and scale services that reach billions of people and support thriving consumer and developer ecosystems. She brings deep experience building and growing platforms, aligning business models to long-term value and operating at global scale, which will be critical in leading our gaming business into its next era of growth. Matt Booty will become Executive Vice President and Chief Content Officer, reporting to Asha. Matt's career reflects a lifelong commitment to games and to the people who make them. Under his leadership, Microsoft Gaming has grown to span nearly 40 studios across Xbox, Bethesda, Activision Blizzard, and King, which are home to beloved franchises including Halo, The Elder Scrolls, Call of Duty, World of Warcraft, Diablo, Candy Crush, and Fallout. I'm going to stop there because then he starts to get in a little bit to Phil Spencer and how he feels about that. And then Phil has a message, and then Asha has a message, and then Matt has a message, and, whatever. And we can kind of get into that. But, it's all kind of nice, and it's corporate speak, you know what I mean, right now, right? What I realize in this is that they have, removed the fact that Asha's position where she is has been specifically working with AI. Now, what they call the AI department that she's coming from in Microsoft used to be something else. And AI, I think, is more or less just a term that makes shareholders happy. But, her time at Meta was in AI. Her time at Instacart as the CEO of Instacart was kind of turning that around. So like, it's not that she doesn't have some experience doing things in a tech space, or whatever. I just think that it is very difficult to come into a space where you're dealing with people who are gamers and you're not one of us, right? Like, it's just, and you're not one of us. And look, we've talked about it before. I think a lot of what Sony's biggest missteps in terms of what they look like front facing over the last few years was having people running it who just didn't seem like they really cared or knew
Okay.
anything about games and gaming and so forth. And I think what has made Xbox and has given Xbox the foothold that it does have, and has allowed them to maintain the core group of followers that they have, has been that Phil has been at the helm,
Yeah.
because they know he's a gamer through and through. Like, they know him, they love him, they trust him. He says things. When I say they trust him, I mean that, like, he's still someone who works for a corporation, right? Like, you can't
Yeah.
take everything that anybody that works for a corporation, even when they do a public facing, at face value most of the time. But Phil is probably the most upfront and honest of them, as in terms of, I think anything that he's ever said that people were like, he was lying, he didn't do this, that, and the third. What he said at the time, it was probably his actual intent, because he is a person who generally will get in front of people and say, "We messed this up. I take this on the shoulder. I'm the head of the team, so it's my fault if things don't work out or if things aren't going well or whatever." And you just don't generally see that from CEOs or people
A
in
lot.
position of power,
Agreed.
like he has. And so I think that's the trust that was built, having an actual face and having actual people that consumers could know mattered. But I do think that in terms of growing outside of what our realm is, where you are dealing with and talking to gamers who kind of live and breathe this stuff, the general consumer doesn't know who Phil Spencer is, and they don't care. It doesn't
Valid.
really matter to them. And I think it's the same, like Sony, I think, realized a long time ago that that's really like what it comes down to. Do you have people in place that can look at the business, see what's happening with the business, and not be, it might be important for Microsoft to be less tied to the artsy fartsy parts of gaming in order to grow the business, truthfully, right? Instead of kind of trusting artsy people to make a thing work the way that a Microsoft needs it to work, if you
Cool. I'm
will.
gonna pop this up because this is right on.
Yeah. So yeah, it says she was in the DevOps division at Microsoft. Gage, you're right. AI is the vogue term for shareholders in tech nowadays. Yeah. Now, I think, look, I think there's an immediate fear, right? Because a lot of people, as soon as they hear AI, like, it's an immediate turn off. I think there's been a lot of talk of AI in gaming, obviously, right? Even something like Claire Obscure, right? There was that whole thing where they had to back off from, like, these indie wars or whatever,
Couple wars,
because
eh?
it turned out they had something AI in there at some point or whatever. Um, there's a lot of that kind of stuff that is making people fearful of what AI is doing, what it means for arts and creativity and people and all that kind of stuff. And so I think there's a little bit of fear. And I want to say that I'm almost positive that when they initially put that blog post out, it had in there that what she used to do for Microsoft in terms of running an AI position, and they removed that from there. But having said that, I want to kind of dig into where things seem to be going, because with Phil being retired and then them announcing Sarah Bond is resigning, there also have been some revelations, it seems, about what actually happened and why things turned out the way that they did. So, Jokes, hook me up.
Here we go. Boom. Caught me off guard, actually.
Yeah, I'm a beast. You know what I mean? I'm an idiot.
Number two.
So look, in the wake of the weekend of Friday of this kind of really weird surprise announcement about what was happening. The games media being all over it and being upset, about how it happened and there not being any pomp and circumstance. Yesterday, there was an article from The Verge. Now, Tom Warren is somebody whose coverage I trust and have trusted for a very long time. He's been following games and so forth and doing stuff like what he does at The Verge for like 20 years. And it would appear, based on what he said in the article, that they were going to announce this today anyway, but it leaked and IGN was going to run a story on it. And so they decided to drop it and get out ahead of it. So I want to read a bit from this article. It says Xbox fans had been anticipating the retirement of Microsoft Gaming CEO Phil Spencer for years, but what most hadn't expected was the departure of Xbox president Sarah Bond too. For many outside the company, Bond seemed like Spencer's natural successor, a deputy of sorts. Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella and Microsoft CFO Amy Hood clearly didn't agree. Instead of picking Bond for the role, Microsoft promoted Asha Sharma, a former Microsoft AI executive, to the top of Xbox. Again, the AI executive thing is a little bit just thrown around, but that's how it reads, so that's what I'm reading to you. The decision to overlook Bond might have surprised many Xbox fans, but for the more than a dozen current and former Microsoft employees I've been speaking to, it's felt inevitable in recent months. Phil Spencer, Microsoft's long-term Xbox chief, made the decision to resign from Microsoft last year after a tough few years for Xbox. The giant Activision Blizzard acquisition had dragged on for far longer than Microsoft had anticipated, and the need to grow the business saw Microsoft walk away from Xbox exclusive games in favor of a multi-platform strategy. Microsoft has also been trying to reinvent the Xbox brand beyond the console with mixed results. Spencer's decision led to months of careful successor planning. It was announced to the world on Friday, but it was supposed to be today. Microsoft was forced to announce it early because it started to leak, and IGN was planning to run a story according to sources familiar with the situation. So let me stop there. Jokes. Does that kind of change your perspective on how we got the information last week?
Maybe a little bit.
Okay.
Maybe a little bit. It's always good to get in front of it, but the fact that obviously this has been in play for a while now. Clearly it has. Like, you don't just name a successor like something like this like an overnight. Like, we know there's processes and things behind it that have got to go. So, and I don't know. Still,
what do you think about them? What do you think about the news? Because I kind of heard this on Friday as well, that they have been planning this for like a year. That Phil Spencer had decided like a year ago that he was going to go ahead and retire. I think there are some people out there who don't believe it.
I could believe, to me, when you're thinking about retirement, that to me is something that you definitely think about in a longer view. Yeah. That's not just you wake up, oh, you know what? I think it's time to retire, and say, this is something that's definitely been in play for a while. Clearly they've done a great job at, keeping things on the wraps, because clearly once you say that to somebody, obviously you're only going to say it to your boss probably. Certain things have to be put in motion at that place, especially even if you, for whatever reason, decided, 6 months later you're not going to do it. They clearly got to get those gears turning to figure out, okay, who's going to be the next person to step up? How does this change certain relationships that we've now built and established? Because let's be real, Phil Spencer has built some amazing relationships over the time that he has been in Xbox. Not saying that some of those relationships will part ways, but definitely in having that connection with him, could potentially change some things. So you got to be able to potentially address some of them and be like, hey, look, there's a chance that, we may be having a shift in leadership or something like that. You may not get super in depth to it, but there's some form of a conversation that you probably will have. But
what do you think about Sarah? Because if you're planning this for a year,
yeah,
right, then it also seems like either I would have thought Sarah Bond thinks, okay, he's retiring. So yeah, I'm definitely, they're putting me in position. Because to be honest, you haven't really seen Phil over the last few
Yeah.
months. And I want to go on the record saying this. There's a part of me that thinks that Phil Spencer might be sick. I don't want to, I hate throwing that out there. But
Right.
just the last few times, and look, it could be stress, it could be any number of things
It
when
could be
this,
a number of
this
things,
kind of
right?
stuff is going on at Microsoft with billions of dollars on the line, or whatever, what that kind of stuff does to you. It's hard to know what a person is doing when you have the kind of money that somebody like Phil Spencer has working for a company like Microsoft, when your weight shifts, and you go from being a bit heavier to being a bit lighter or whatever. Some of those things could just be I'm on a regimen, or I have somebody I'm working with, or whatever it is, or I'm starting to look older and I need to look younger because of what my audience is like, or whatever. But there's definitely been times when I've seen Phil Spencer, the most recent few times I've seen him, and thought he looks like he might be sick. That's just and that would not be their business to tell. You know what I mean? That's just not
Absolutely.
a thing that you say. And to me personally, it also speaks to not having a real run up to what the retirement for somebody who's given 38 years to the company. We're not just talking
Right.
about 25 years at Xbox.
Xbox.
We're
This is the
talking
whole.
38 years to the company as a whole. In the 25th year of Xbox, you would think there would be more pomp and circumstance and some more things surrounding that, and them kind of showing and kind of him doing a little bit more of a transition. Here's the people who are going to be coming and
Yeah.
taking over and blah, blah, blah. And that it would be more front facing. And as fans, not just of Xbox, not just of gaming, but actually personal fans of Phil's, those are things we want to see. When I don't see that, the bell that goes off for me isn't always something nefarious in terms of Microsoft was tired of his shenanigans. It's not working. Get him out of here. You know what I'm saying? Or force him into retirement. I think that there might be more at play here. And obviously, I don't know that. I'm just going by how this feels and what I've actually seen. On that note, and again, this is going to take a little time. We got to kind of dig into sort of all of what happened. I want to read a little bit more. So the thing that was weird about the retirement announcement Friday, and then Sarah Bond stepping down or resigning, was that 4 hours before the news broke, she still had a tweet. She had a post on LinkedIn that went up talking to people about inviting people to provide feedback about certain Xbox accessibility features. So I'm going to dig into that a little bit. So it says on Friday, that day, that kicked off a day of chaos where teams inside Xbox were hearing the news first through reporters and news outlets instead of via internal memos. The team running Sarah Bond's social media accounts were so unprepared that a LinkedIn post inviting people to provide feedback about Xbox accessibility features went live just before her departure was announced. It sat there for hours until Bond's team eventually posted her own memo. Microsoft executives shared 4 memos with Xbox teams on Friday, but only Phil Spencer ever mentioned Bond. Satya Nadella, Microsoft Gaming EVP Matt Booty, and new Microsoft Gaming CEO Asha Sharma all had kind words for Spencer, but no mention of Bond. Even Bond's own memo to her teams didn't arrive until hours after the announcement and wasn't part of Microsoft's blog. So some Xbox employees I've been speaking with, again, this is Tom Warren at The Verge, saw the writing on the wall for Bond last year. She was promoted to Xbox president in October of 2023, just days after Microsoft finalized a $68.7 billion deal to acquire Activision Blizzard. Bond had been crucial in getting the deal over the line with regulators and slowly started to become the face of Xbox as Spencer took on the complicated duties of integrating a huge new business into Microsoft gaming. 6 months after Bond's promotion, Xbox executive Kareem Chaudhry, who reported directly to Bond, departed Microsoft and triggered another shakeup of some teams inside Xbox. Chaudhry was key to Xbox backward compatibility support and helped bring Xbox Cloud Gaming to life as xCloud in 2019. Just weeks after Chaudhry departed, former Xbox Chief Marketing Officer Jarrett West also left Microsoft in June 2024. That meant the Xbox marketing team was now reporting directly to Bond. A month later, Microsoft delivered a marketing campaign that signaled to people you didn't need to buy an Xbox console anymore. The message was that you don't need an Xbox to play Xbox because games were available through Xbox Cloud Gaming on TVs. This was all part of the Xbox Everywhere strategy that Bond had been pursuing, a vision to move the Xbox brand beyond its roots in console hardware. Months later, This Is an Xbox campaign launched with commercials that positioned a phone or a tablet as an Xbox instead of just a console. It was a confusing campaign, and I'm told it offended many Xbox employees internally. All right, so look, just based on that, right? It's starting to sound like Sarah Bond was a problem. 4 people at Xbox working directly for her. And, there's more stuff in there, to that note. I do think it's a bit telling, right? And, look, I don't want to dig too deep into this side of what things are, right? But to have her kind of be the face when, look, you can tell she's clearly not a gamer. It's not really what she does. It's not her thing. And it doesn't mean that she doesn't know how to build. As a matter of fact, in that article, many people there who say she was tough to work with, and they say, it was her way or the highway, and didn't necessarily like working with her, also admit that she did a great job building relationships with other companies, with gaming, so, there are things to her credit in that. But again, it seems like on the Microsoft side of things, they didn't really see it that way and kind of wanted her gone. So look, all that said at this point, right? It's kind of what is going to happen at Xbox now, jokes. What do you think any of this means? How does Xbox move forward? And like, before you think too hard on it, I want to read what Asha said in her message. She says, "Dear team, today I begin my role as CEO of Microsoft Gaming. I feel 2 things at once: humility and urgency. Humility because this team has built something extraordinary over decades. Urgency because gaming is in a period of rapid change and we need to move with clarity and conviction. I am stepping into work shaped by generations of artists, engineers, designers, writers, musicians, operators, and more who create worlds that have brought joy and deep personal meaning to hundreds of millions of players. The level of craft here is exceptional, and it's amplified by Xbox, which was founded in the belief that the power of games connects people and pushes the industry forward. Thank you to Phil for his leadership, and to every studio, platform, and operations team that built this foundation. We are stewards of some of the most loved stories and characters in entertainment, and bring players and creators together around the fun and community of gaming in entirely new ways. My first job is simple: understand what makes this work and protect it. That starts with 3 commitments. First, great games. Everything begins here. We must have great games beloved by players before we do anything. Unforgettable characters, stories that make us feel, innovative gameplay, and creative excellence. We will empower our studios, invest in iconic franchises, and back bold new ideas. We will take risks. We will enter new categories and markets where we can add real value, grounded in what players care about most. I promoted Matt Booty in honor of his commitment. He understands the craft and the challenges of building great games, has led teams that deliver award-winning work, and has earned the trust of game developers across the industry. Second, the return of Xbox. We will commit to our core Xbox fans and players, those who have invested with us for the past 25 years, and to the developers who built the expansive universes and experiences that are embraced by players across the world. We will celebrate our roots with a renewed commitment to Xbox, starting with console, which has shaped who we are. It connects us to the players and fans who invest in Xbox, and to the developers who build ambitious experiences for it. Gaming now lives across devices. not within the limits of any single piece of hardware. As we expand across PC, mobile, and cloud, Xbox should feel seamless, instant, and worthy of the communities we serve. We will break down barriers so developers can build once and reach players everywhere without compromise. Third, future of play. We are witnessing the reinvention of play. To meet the moment, we will invent new business models and new ways to play by leaning into what we already have: iconic teams, characters, and worlds that people love. But we will not treat those words as static IP to milk and monetize. We will build a shared platform and tools that empower developers and players to create and share their own stories. As monetization and AI evolve and influences this future, we will not chase short-term efficiency or flood our ecosystem with soulless AI slop. Games are and always will be art, crafted by humans and created with the most innovative technology provided by us. The next 25 years belongs to the teams who dare to build something surprising, something no one else is willing to try, and have the patience to see it through. We have done this before. I am here to help us do it again. I want to return to the renegade spirit that built Xbox in the first place. It will require us to relentlessly question everything, revisit processes, protect what works, and be brave enough to change what does not. Thank you for welcoming me into this journey, Asha. Now, jokes. Having heard that, here's a picture of the new head of Xbox, right? What do you think of that? Does it make you feel better? What does it mean for Xbox?
Yeah, it's put me like right now. I would say it's in a neutral spot. So I like the comment about committing to the console. Obviously, we've gone on. Sarah's done the whole entire thing about everything is an Xbox and doing that whole entire thing. I can understand maybe a little bit why that may push people a little bit in a different direction when you're building what's supposed to be like your grand architecture when you can just put it someplace else. But that's the advancement, how things are going. That is what it is.
Yeah.
The side of me that's a little wary would be, you do have to take risks, you have to take chances. But this is also saying to me that we're potentially looking at what is working, we're going to keep. But if there's things that are not necessarily performing and underperforming, it sounds like we potentially may be cutting some things. Could be some studios. It could be a number of things.
Yeah.
So I think there's good commitments that I hear in trying to lean into, the franchises and the characters and the thing that everybody knows and love. Like, I like the sound of that. That's where we kind of were as we were getting with some of these titles that we hadn't heard from, like, or have been announced, like a Fable, for example, that has been announced for years and we hadn't seen too much come from that. So I would say I'm in a neutral spot right now, because like with the way that they are leaving, it just doesn't sit well with me right now. And just like you said, it could be a number of things. You know what? Maybe sick, whatever it may be. But it just seems with the quickness and the way that we have dropped this retirement, I feel exactly how you do. Phil Spencer retiring should be a party. Like, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, 100%.
It's sad to see him go.
Yeah.
But with the advancements and things that have occurred throughout the Xbox, all the highs and the lows, like, that man has done a great job at building this brand, reinventing it a couple of times, honestly, out here, and making it succeed when at one point in time people did not think it was going to be a thing. The advancement of cloud that Xbox has done, it's been amazing. And I feel like just with the simple statement that was put out, I don't want to say it sounds disingenuous that it was just put out like that, but there's a piece of it that I feel like if Phil was retiring, I feel like normally he would be on a stage celebrating Xbox, just like you said, 25 years, doing the great things, and then, listen, there are going to be some things, I am stepping away, but there's going to be these amazing teams and everything to be able to keep the things alive. Now, the other side of it, it sounds like maybe he was protecting Sarah for a while for the fact that she just up and resigned. I don't want to say that, but I don't know.
Look,
There's
let me say
just
this. Let me say this. It's not lost on me, right, that a company as big as Microsoft, in the world that we currently live in, the way that things are, so everything that Microsoft does is scrutinized. It doesn't really matter what they do; it's always bad. Like it, you know what I mean? Like it just, it's very corporate overlord. It's very like and nobody trusts really anything that they say or really what they're doing. What I can tell you is that it would be a very difficult road to take a cis white male like Phil Spencer, build somebody up, build a black woman up like Sarah Bond to be poised to take his place, remove her, and replace her with another cis white male in Matt Booty. But to replace her with another woman and a woman of color, right? And then promote Matt Booty and have that person say, I promoted Matt Booty and I did it because of what he's built, basically saying he knows way better than I do. So I trust his judgment, right? I'm coming in, I have a lot to learn. There things like here's the truth. Everything that there is that you can do, like I'm that guy, right? I went to Asha Sharma. I went to her LinkedIn, bro. Like I was in her business. You understand what I'm saying? Like what she did at Instacart was incredible. What she did in Meta was incredible. Like she has a proven track record of going in, working with companies, and getting people to adopt products that otherwise people weren't really adopting. And the reality of it is that is something that Sarah Bond seemed like she was forcing, like trying to get people to do. This is an Xbox. Everything's an Xbox. You don't even have to worry about committing to Xbox because you already have one, right? But I don't feel like that messaging ever landed in the piece that says, come jump in our ecosystem, right? Like when Xbox was running the jump in campaign, people were doing just that. You felt like you were missing out on something. You need to jump in. Nothing about the This is an Xbox campaign, in my opinion, made people feel like they were missing out. No. It made people feel like they were already in. They were just too dumb to know they were already in. You know what I mean? And like that doesn't necessarily feel good, right? But what you want to do is you want to give people FOMO, the fear that they're missing out on something that's great, right? What's so great about the games on Xbox? What's so great about cloud gaming? What's so great about being able to access your games anywhere? So showing me a commercial where you show a bunch of items that can do things that are Xbox, but not ever really showing those things happening or how easy it is to do or how well it really works to the main consumer doesn't, you know what I mean, make them feel like that's a thing they need to participate in my opinion, right? So Asha may come in with relatively zero background in gaming, but an understanding of like what makes people tick and the things that people like. And her jumping in and starting to play games, like we looked at her gamer profile, like we know what's going on. And Joy's brand new. You know what I'm saying? Like it's only like 40 days old, bro. Like, but it also tells me, literally going through her achievements earlier today, that within the last 40 days, she knew this was coming. They knew this was coming. This isn't something that just happened Friday. She was like, ooh, you know what I mean? Like, I'm sure she interviewed for it beforehand. I'm sure, you know what I mean? Somebody talked to her. She knew what was going on. Now, that doesn't mean Sarah Bond knew.
That's a different story to find out. Because you know what? If you find that, listen, I ain't going to be mad if they did that behind her back. And then it was like, yeah, she's going to be the new... I can understand why you decide to step out and step down from your position. Like, I can get that.
Sarah Bond looked uncomfortable every time I saw her. Every time she had to speak, every time she was on camera, she looks like she don't even like wearing the color green. Like, I mean that, bro. Like, she looks like she hates St. Patrick's Day. Like, there's no, like, I never got a good feeling of, I was proud to see a woman of color in that position. But I was probably more surprised to see it than I was proud to see it, because I was like, who is this? I never heard of her, right? But there are executives who come from the other side of things at PlayStation who had zero background in gaming and in, you know what I mean, before they took over and became the faces, if you will, right? I do think that there is still a very high stigma around women and gaming and their ability as gamers and who they could possibly be as gamers that makes you take somebody like a Sean Layden, who really isn't a gamer, bro. Like at least he wasn't. Like he might be now. He has a
Yeah.
lot of insider knowledge and knows some things, but Slim was at like Pizza Hut or something like that before he can, you know what I mean? Like it's not, but he was a dude. And so like
Yep.
nobody really questioned it, right? I think the moment you put a woman in a position like that, they will question it. It doesn't like it. There's no two ways about it, right? Because we're still, and especially Xbox. And I say that because the difference between Xbox players, Nintendo players, and PlayStation players is that Xbox players were built on bro culture, like frat boy bro culture, Gears of War, supersized dudes, everything is a shooter. Like that's the culture. You know what I'm saying? And like PlayStation was built more on the innovation and the artsy and whatever. And everything that Xbox ever did to try to get into that space always felt kind of forced. You know what I mean? Like that's a fact. From a tech standpoint, they always had an edge. I won't ever say like I'm an Xbox fan because I like that stuff. But like from a personality standpoint, I like Phil better than I like any of the rest of them that were, you know what I mean? But even their big, what's that dude's name? Kevin that they used to do the commercials or whatever for at PlayStation or whatever. Kevin, something like that. He was an actor. Like it wasn't like he was really a gamer, but that was their face. He was more or less like their mascot, if you will, after Crash. You know what I'm saying? Which is like, so but both of them come from a place where they were renegades, right? PlayStation was doing things that Nintendo wouldn't do. Nintendo was kind of static and for the kids and whatever. And, PlayStation was bold and innovative and for an older crowd. Microsoft was the same thing. PlayStation is now kind of stagnant. They feel like they're better than Nintendo, blah, blah, blah. We can come in and we can do things they can't do. And they did, right? They were renegades who were kind of the bad boys at Microsoft who wanted to kind of push a thing, right? So having somebody come in who doesn't have gamer blinders on and looks at it a little bit more objectively and kind of sees things differently and possibly from the perspective that Microsoft needs, which is outside of what just we as gamers see. We talk all the time about what most gamers play, right? 2K, Madden,
Call of Duty,
Fortnite. That's it. Roblox. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's it, right? And for all of the games that exist and all the different kinds of things and all of the artsy fartsy and how we love the indies and all that kind of stuff, that doesn't necessarily turn the dollars up. You know what I'm saying? The way buying an Activision Blizzard King, you're really making the majority of your money from Candy Crush. Just regular people, moms, grandmothers, and whatever, sitting in the laundromat. You know what I'm saying? Putting coins in the, in the laundry machine, dropping dollars in their phone because it's right there in front of them, right? And how do you attack that, right? And bring more people in. So I have zero issues with her and with her being named in the position she is.
Right.
I want to have issues with how Phil's retirement has been handled by the company. But that also really does make me feel like there's something else going on with Phil that isn't necessarily our business. And that's the hill I'm gonna be on, because I just don't think that they would do it that way.
Yeah, I agree.
There wasn't something else happening, right? So it just makes me feel like there's a little bit more. What I want to do before we get out of here and go on to the next story, and I know it's running long, but again, it's a lot happening and it's kind of important to the stuff that we love, right? So about an hour and a half ago, 2 hours ago now, Windows Central posted an article. They did an interview with Asha and gave her an opportunity to address some of the things that she said in her statement, which are things like a return to Xbox and that kind of thing, right? So it says, in an exclusive interview with Jess Corden here at Windows Central, Asha Sharma sat down to answer some important questions, from what she meant by the return of Xbox in her tweets, to how she views the future of console. There's plenty to unpack, so let's dive in. So this is going to take a minute. But when first appointed as CEO of Xbox, Sharma made an interesting comment that immediately sparked debate among fans. She spoke about a return to Xbox, a phrase that left many wondering what exactly she meant. In other words, she framed the return as more about the culture at Xbox, which isn't a bad thing. So what she said is, for me, the spirit of return to Xbox is about returning to the spirit that the team was founded on. It's that spirit of surprise. It's the spirit of building something nobody else was willing to try. I've heard renegade, rebellion, and fun used. That's what I was thinking about when I wrote that. She says, I think that our core Xbox fans and players have invested up to 25 years of themselves in these universes and our console. I want to make sure everybody knows I'm committed to Xbox, starting with the console. We're going to keep meeting players where they are. The world continues to evolve and change. We're going to make sure Xbox is a great place for developers and players. Again, that was part of what was there. Says Sharma goes on into more detail on what this means. So she says we want to invest in reducing the artificial divide between different types of devices and what they want to use with us. I think that's going to mean a lot more investment in breaking down the barriers, in helping developers build once and show up across different hardware experiences. For me, I believe Xbox starts with its fans and will grow from there. That's what I wanted to signal with the return to Xbox. So he says, for me, it's great to see Sharma committed to Xbox hardware, and I will cross my fingers until we see an eventual true Xbox handheld that I can play my accumulated library spanning back 18 years. It doesn't quite end there. Sharma goes on to add, Xbox players have thousands of dollars invested in money and time too. It's incredibly important for me to understand that and protect that. I'm committed to returning to Xbox, and that starts with console. That starts with hardware. You will hear more about that soon. So he says, hearing her say there's more about that soon is an exciting premise and would certainly be a way to kickstart her time as CEO of Xbox. There's a lot to digest here, and it's rather exciting too. Sharma's saying a lot of things, at least to me anyway, and hopefully to you all too. So, look, I don't know. Look, we've been hearing Sarah Bond talk about the next console is going to be the greatest. And look, Sarah Bond did actually release a statement. And her statement does say that she's actually going to stay on for a little while too, to help Asha. Whatever. Look, stuff like that a lot of times for me means that there's an NDA, right? Like there's usually, something in place that says, look, you can't go work for somebody else right now because you'll tell them all our stuff. You know what I mean, or whatever, right? So keeping somebody on, keeping her on, keeping Phil on, as advisors and that kind of thing, sitting on the board kind of stuff is like not. It's not super uncommon.
Yeah.
It makes sense. And they say it's to help with the transition, and maybe in some ways it will be, right?
Having possibly a little bit of it.
Introduce you to these people and whatever, right? Somebody who you trust like a Phil to, walk her into some of these studios or, get with Matt Booty and say, look, these are the people that you really need to talk to. These are the people who you want to hear from if you want to know what's keeping people from being able to create the way they want to one time and it get on all platforms or whatever it is, right? So to me, she's not necessarily saying something different from Xbox everywhere or this is an Xbox. That's not necessarily different when she says we want people to be able to build once and be done, right? But it does tell me that there's a possibility that Microsoft is looking at a framework that is similar to what people see in something like Unreal, where Epic as a company has an engine that many developers use.
Yep.
They can develop there, and then it allows them to do it, and have access to all this stuff. And then they push them to whatever consoles, push them to Steam, push them to PC, push them to Switch. But I could see Microsoft working on something in the background that does the same thing, that allows for them, again, to develop one time and not have to do the initial work.
Keep doing it over.
To get it ported or to get, whatever. So, look, it's interesting. Do you feel like the commitment to console is a real thing, Jokes?
Maybe at least for one more generation, since potentially it's it's in the works. It seems like, but
let me listen. let me say something. I like what you said there, maybe for one more generation, but I want to be honest with you. I don't think that we're supposed to have more than one more generation of consoles. Like, I don't think. Look, I think we're at a place from a technological standpoint, right? Like, we have seen over the last 20 years physical games basically go away completely. Basically. I mean, they exist, but they exist more as like a collector's thing or a retro thing. They don't exist for the sake of you need physical, you know what I'm saying, whatever. And when we talk about innovation in the video game space, in that landscape, right? When we talk about like, well, the jump from, you know, PS2 to PS3 and the jump from Xbox to Xbox 360, you could see it, you could feel it in the change in, like, you know, but we jumped to HD, right? We jumped in processing power and so forth, right? And as we continue to do that, like, we get more frames, but the games don't necessarily look quote unquote better.
Yeah.
They do, but they don't. You know what I mean? Like, it's less noticeable up front. And the ways that you have to do things in order to show that become less about the graphics power of like how realistic something can look with the ray tracing and all that, and more about, well, how many zombies can you fit on screen at one time, or how many, you know what I mean, like that kind of thing, right? What kind of processing power do you have? And when you start talking frames per second and things like that, again, I'm just going to tell you, jokes, that there have always been and will always be the diehard tech fans who are the kind of people who buy a PC and want it to be the strongest, most powerful, beefy, you know, raise your electricity bill kind of thing they can possibly get, right? And while there are a lot of console players who love that kind of stuff, right, they still want it to be simple. They don't want it to be as complicated as a PC tends to be, right? Just give it to me. Make the tech available to everybody and make it simple, right? And so, like, as your adoption of 4K TVs is like, you know, 55-inch, $250, you know what I mean? Like, all right, well, it's simple and it's everywhere. Dog, you still will walk into people's houses where they're watching something on their television that's a 4K TV, and that joint is in like 720, and you're like, what are you doing? A lot of people don't know. A lot of people don't care. And many of those people are gamers. They might not be quote-unquote hardcore gamers, but they are, right? And so, like, now as you're trying to convince kids who are 8, 9, 10, where the thing they love to play the most is Fortnite, and Fortnite looks like a cartoon, and they're kids, so cartoons are the thing, right? Like, we spent 2 generations, I will say, like maybe 3 at this point, right? Xbox 360 slash PlayStation 3, Xbox One slash PS4, and the current generation trying to appeal to adults who want things to look more adult and be more realistic and whatever, because that was the next evolution for us. Games were already cartoons to us. We came from 8-bit pixels and all that, right? So we wanted more realism. But when we were kids, what we had was great. And if you're still trying to attract kids, right, there's a reason why Fortnite is what it is, right? Because it speaks to a younger audience and teaches them about older IP. So whatever the next thing, the next console we get, PlayStation 6 and the Xbox
Z, I don't know.
Right, you know what I'm saying?
Whatever.
Xbox Alphabet, whatever it's going to be, right? The possibility, right, that those are the last true pieces of hardware that we actually need in order for us to play games and have stuff the way we want. 5G becomes regular and we move on to 6G and, like, you know what I'm saying, whatever. Like, truthfully, streaming and cloud gaming and all that kind of stuff is probably going to become regular and ubiquitous in the same way, jokes, that, like, if you can remember in the 360 era, right, second screen was a big deal, right? They did this whole thing where as you're playing the game, you can take your tablet out. Tablets were the big thing. They were touchscreen or whatever. Touchscreens were amazing. Oh my God, you can touch the screen. Bro, everything's a touchscreen. If you walk up to a screen and it's not a touchscreen, you're so disappointed these days. You know what I'm saying? You think about the sheer number of people who have been born since the 360 came out 20 years ago, that everything is a touchscreen. Like, they don't know anything but that. So, like, the idea of downloading games is regular to them. right? Like Robux is regular to them. V-Bucks is regular to them. Like that is money to them. They don't know dollars and change and coins. So like if whatever the thing beyond the next physical console is just like, yeah, now you just have an Xbox account. Now you just have a PlayStation account and you just can access your stuff, whether that is some kind of VR goggle you wear, or again, it's your phone / your TV. Even if it's just your phone and you're sending that to your like those kinds of things are becoming so ubiquitous that if we get a console this year, next year, the next console we're not getting until 2037.
Yeah, that's about right.
Almost 2040. What do you expect the tech to be like then? Like, do you really think? Like, I don't know that we need another box beyond. Like, I don't think it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just don't know that it would make sense. Sure, there could be some kind of crazy hardware innovation or something that happens in the space, but when they're also talking about AI doing things like taking things that aren't at the highest fidelity or aren't at the highest frame rate, and it just filling those frames in for you and making it look like it's what need for that hardware do you necessarily truly have? So no, I mean, I think you're right. I think that one more console is probably all we're gonna get, but I think that makes sense. Period. I don't necessarily think that's like like if you're Microsoft and you're a software company, realistically, at the end of the day, Microsoft has made their money by having their software on everybody else's hardware. Google as a platform has made their money by having their software on everyone else's hardware, right? All Android phones, almost all TVs, everything that's a Roku box, you know, like all that stuff is all Android. It's all running on their software on somebody else's hardware, right? So like, I don't know. I don't know that it makes sense for Microsoft to have hardware. Yeah, like it just I don't know that makes sense. I just think, look, if the next PlayStation just ran Windows / Steam, which they might have to do if this Steam box, like if they want to be able to compete with that,
keep up and be able to use multiple. Like, hey, listen, just when they did the what was it, the Mario with the Rock Ally, and like just seeing like the Game Pass icon next to the Steam icon, that you could just be like, that was more important than the whole presentation of the handheld in itself.
Right? Because it's just, you know, it's not like it hasn't been tried before. It's what 3DO was, right? It was like, we'll let Panasonic can build a 3DO, and so can Sanyo, and so can whoever, whatever. But now, like, but you have to have the software for the hardware to run, and that's what Microsoft does, and they do it really, really high on a business level as well as at a consumer level, right? Like, I assume that whatever laptop you're using right now has some version of Windows something on it. I know you're probably using something with Safari or whatever on it, which is disgusting. It's probably Chrome. You running Chrome?
Yeah, it's Chrome right now.
Right. And whose platform is that?
Google.
But you're not an Android phone user.
Nope.
You understand what I'm saying? Somebody else's software running on somebody else's hardware is it's a business model that makes sense, right? So if you're like, we want to make it seamless for people to create their stuff, and then it's just wherever they want it to be, that's what that sounds like to me.
Definitely.
Sounds like you want to have a distribution platform where everything works, you know what I'm saying, across the board. Now, she didn't say PlayStation or Nintendo. She said PC. She said cloud. She said console.
We're just going to use the generic word out.
It's interesting, bro. It's a serious shakeup. but it does kind of make me more interested and more excited about what it means we'll see from Xbox as a company within Microsoft over the rest of the year. For the rest of the year, right? Because a lot of what is already in play is already in play.
That's
They're not
already
even
played.
first
That's not
thinking,
going to.
right?
Yeah.
They are part of Phil's legacy, in my opinion, and they're part of Sarah Bond's legacy, right? If she's like, she's the one who's been out there saying, "Look, the next hardware you get, it's gonna be a thing," which is her job. She's supposed to do that.
Yeah.
Ooh
Yep.
boy, it's gonna be a thing. We'll see, bro. I'm optimistic.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think Friday I was mad.
I don't know, like a couple different emotions: mad, confused. Like I don't know. You throw a couple of them out there for it because that was just all like.
Yeah. You know what jokes hooked me up?
Number 3.
All right, look. From bad news to maybe good news to more bad news. PlayStation Thursday, right before the Xbox thing popped off, announced that Bluepoint Games is no more. Jokes, what's your history with Bluepoint? How you feel about them?
I don't think I have completed any of the games. I've definitely played, so obviously, like, did they do all the Uncharted's, or did they only do a couple?
Nah, well, no. So here's the thing: Bluepoint basically has created a career for themselves out of doing remakes. Truthfully,
Yeah.
They did the Drake collection.
That's what it. Yeah.
They didn't do the original games.
Yeah,
They
that's the song. Yeah.
redid them for the collection. Same thing with Demon Souls. Same thing with Shadow of Colossus. Like that's what they did. It's kind of sad to see because Sony just bought them like 5 years ago. And here's the thing. They had mostly been working on just PlayStation games. They were doing PlayStation exclusive titles that were remakes for years before Sony finally acquired them. And at the time when Sony acquired them, my personal position on it was they only acquired them because Microsoft is out here acquiring
other studios.
They were kind of afraid. And I say that because, again, like, you've been working with them on an exclusive level for years and never bothered to why wouldn't you just acquire them? And now that they've decided to shut them down. I want to read a little bit of the article. So this says Sony is all set to shut down one studio just 5 years after acquiring it. We're talking about Bluepoint. Bloomberg's Jason Schreier reported the news following an email statement from a Sony spokesperson. So, following a recent business review, the decision was made to close Bluepoint Games in March. Bluepoint Games is an incredibly talented team, and their technical expertise has delivered exceptional experiences for the PlayStation community. We thank them for their passion, creativity, and craftsmanship. Bluepoint Games was an Austin-based game developer company responsible for remaking PlayStation titles like Demon Souls, Shadow Colossus, Uncharted, Nathan Drake Collection. The decision to shut down came after a business review. Sony Interactive Entertainment acquired the company in September 2021, and ever since then, Bluepoint has not released any new games of its own, instead contributing to God of War Ragnarok. Since then, however, there have been troubling updates. In January 2025, Sony even shut down Bluepoint's live service God of War project, which the team had been working on for years, but that isn't the biggest blow fans felt. A decade after the release of From Software's greatest game, fans still await its remake, and after their work on Demon Souls, Bluepoint was thought to be the perfect studio to remaster Bloodborne. However, with Bluepoint being shut down, that possibility is entirely gone. I don't know about entirely. It just means that Bluepoint wouldn't be doing it, right? From Software is a big company. They're their own company, and they sure enough could just redo that
Absolutely do their own remake. Yeah.
as long as they partner with Sony to do it, because it's Sony's IP that From made for them. So it's interesting. They shut down Firewalk. After Concord. I'm concerned about Bungie. Because I'll be honest, like
Yeah.
I'll be real. Like I don't think Marathon's gonna do anything.
I really don't. Like, I'm happy to be able to play the server slam thing, but uh, I don't know. I feel like I don't want to get don't say like I feel like they've just split, and trying to do Destiny and then trying to do this at the same time just feels like you just splitting these resources that you shouldn't be splitting. But that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, I mean, look, Bluepoint. It's interesting and sad to see Bluepoint get shuttered in just the wake of what the industry currently is.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the gaming industry, it's not just games. I mean, look, it's like this in movies and in music. I think there are a couple of things that are happening. And I don't want to make light of anyone's work. But I want to say this. Sometimes the innovations that come along in industry, or as industries meet each other,
Mm-hmm.
like as technology kind of gets better and other things, in spaces, and we create ways to make our workflow easier.
Mm-hmm.
We make it easier for people, making it easier for people who do have vision and are creative and really know and understand the basics of things in terms of video games, like understand gameplay,
Mm-hmm.
understand what it feels like to hold a controller, how it should feel to you when you click the right trigger or pressing the thumbstick, what that delivery should feel like on screen, down to like frames per second, that kind of thing. Innovation in spaces where you take RPG elements and you kind of flip it on its head and you do things that are a little bit different, and you kind of add that. When we allow technology to get into a space where it makes the workflow easier for those creatives, we also make it easier for people who don't have those same creative
Mm-hmm.
spaces and maybe only see dollar signs or something like that, to get in that space and also create, right? And create things that can be successful, right? That might really work. But that making it easier to create those things and put those things out oversaturates the market, any market, right? So if you just look at the number of songs or albums that are released to streaming services over the course of a month, like, the amount of content that there is, across any streaming service,
Mm-hmm.
the amount of content that exists across, just if you have cable or satellite, right? Like, you can't possibly consume it all, right? And finding an audience, keeping an audience, maintaining an audience, the idea of having to dumb things down to make it easier for people to be able to do more than one thing at a time, like all of those things are contributing factors to why a company like Bluepoint, that really has made their mark in living in our nostalgia,
Mm-hmm.
remaking things that we can go back and play again, or experience for the first time in a way that doesn't feel
Yeah.
like the mechanics are old and antiquated, right? Kind of bringing them, up to the new. When you've made your name doing that, then maybe there really isn't space for a company like yours to create something new or to do something new if you're not very careful about how you position yourself. And if, as a company, Bluepoint was still solely owned and operated,
Mm-hmm.
then maybe they could do that, right? A company like Sony pays them to remake a game that is one of their IPs, and they take that money and they use that money to create something new. You know what I mean? Like, if
Mm-hmm.
they really want to do it. But when Sony owes you, then the money they pay you also has to go back into that machine. And so
Yeah.
now you can only do whatever they tell you to do. So if there's like, well, yeah, it would be cool if you were doing a thing. However, we could really use your help on this God of War thing over here,
Mm-hmm.
right? And man, I would have much rather seen. Bluepoint do the God of War 2D side-scrolling
Rolling.
Metroidvania that came up, then this other company that, like, again, for all intents and purposes, like, it's okay, right? It's just a game. It doesn't feel special. If it didn't have God of War's name on it, I don't think
Yeah.
anybody would care.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, if it wasn't for that, and for all intents and purposes, they could have just been building one, and then somebody was like,
Hey, you know what? You should just
if
make
we
it
would have
God
put
of
the God
War.
of War, yeah, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, and just
and it just seems to me like it could have been that kind of a pitch. Like, we have a
yeah.
thing we're working on, and let's just but even that, again, oversaturated. The 2D side scroller thing blew up over like the
It
last
did.
year, and they're all over the place. And so it's just kind of like, I mean, I guess, so I don't know, man. Look, my heart goes out to the folks at Bluepoint, and anybody who lost their positions. I hope everybody finds something and lands on their feet, as this kind of stuff happens and continues to happen throughout the industry. I really do think that there's like a virus that's moving through the industry from a creative standpoint. And some of that is a business virus, right? That's like, we did a business review, and after we did our business review, we realized we shouldn't have bought Bluepoint, is what that sounds like to me.
Yeah.
More than like, you know what I mean? More than like, but we're closing them, right? And like, look, I don't know where they were, who was running things, who was still there, whatever. Not everybody has the kind of story that, like, IO Interactive had, where they were like, they got bought by Square Enix, and then when Square Enix was ready to shut them down, they were able to buy themselves out of Square Enix and own themselves again, and then go back in and bet on themselves and put something out where now we're looking forward to their James Bond game, right? But they still only have two things, right? They got Hitman, they got James Bond, right?
James Bond,
and hopefully that
that's it.
James Bond thing works, because it's a license, and it's a license that's owned by Amazon.
Amazon at this point.
But what kind of money will they take from them? Because the game that they made is you know what I mean? But can they take that and turn that back into doing something new with Hitman, or whatever it is? And again, you got to keep in mind that, like, Hitman isn't just a video game. Like, Hitman is,
it's got a
there's
movie.
like at least 2 movies. There's 2.
Is it 2?
I swear there's 2.
I think it is 2.
I swear there's,
because I think it's 2 different people. I feel like
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. I think Bluepoint did really good work. As an original fan of Shadow of the Colossus, what I'll say is that I loved it when it came out. I would have loved to have seen them take on all of those. Like, I would have loved to have seen them do Ico, like go back and do the original Ico, and take that on. I never went back and played Shadow of Colossus when they made it. I just love that they made it look like, you know what I mean? It was new. Like, they made it look the way it felt like it looked to me when I played it on PlayStation 2 when it originally came out. And as much as I love that game and appreciate it, like, I just didn't need to go back and play it. But a lot of people did. You know what I mean? And I'm glad that it was there for people to do. I feel bad that it happened. But man, when I see that they're cutting them, I'm like,
Eesh.
They spent a lot more money on Bungie, bro. Like, they spent a lot more money on Bungie, and I'm really concerned that, like, if Marathon doesn't do,
Destiny, Bungie pushed back the latest update that Destiny was supposed to get, and now it's supposed to turn into like a major update that's supposed to come out in like June, and Destiny, and like, I've had a love-hate relationship with Destiny, but
mostly
Destiny has been on has been on a downward turn probably like over the last like year and some change. So like the Renegades with the whole Star, I played the first mission of that, kind of cool, but
yeah. All right, look, that wraps it up for what happened was. You know what I mean? We got through those 3. It was a lot going on last week. Last week's news and this week's early week news was kind of crazy. Now it's time to get into jokes, your top 5 Pokemon. Let's talk a little bit about what's going on this week, right? Pokemon is turning 30. Give me the goods.
So coming on Friday, we are celebrating the 30th anniversary of the Pokemon franchise. We already know some things that they, honest truth, was probably supposed to be kept under wraps until Friday, but unfortunately, leaks, of course, as usual in the gaming world, always happen. So we do know the remake version of the original Red and Green games, codenamed Fire Red and Leaf Green, will be coming out also on Friday on the Switch 2. They were originally released back in 2004 on the Game Boy Advance. Jesus. But they are getting re-released, or I should say released, on Friday. Once the presentation that Nintendo is going to be doing ends, those games will probably go live immediately after that. We're probably going to get a whole slew of announcements of things that are to come. Being the 30th anniversary, they did do one celebration thing during the 25th anniversary. I'm expecting some new card set or something that's going to come out. We'll know all good and well when it comes for Friday. But until
What time
then,
is the stream?
it's at 9 a.m. So,
All right.
I get plenty of time for them to do that and then say, guys, you can go start ordering this stuff ASAP. Because that's typically how it always works.
All right. I feel like you might need to be at a store somewhere when they say.
I'm going to be real with you. It's probably initially not going to be physical store. It's probably all going to be through Pokemon Center. I have a feeling they have Pokemon. Before I get it, because I'm about to. They did make an announcement at the end of last week that Pokemon as a company purchased one of the companies that is in charge of like logistics and everything for distributing Pokemon cards throughout like a lot of the major retailers. Normally they've worked partnerships with them. I believe the company's name is Excel, if I remember right. So this is supposed to change up the way that cards are going to be distributed. Supposedly it's to combat scalpers is really where this is coming at, to make sure that they can get the hands, because right now, like, still it's hard to get your hands on Pokemon cards, like almost damn near impossible if you're not standing outside of a store when it opens bright and early. But
Yeah, they bought Excel. Says the Pokemon Company International is acquiring Excel Brands, its largest U.S. distributor of trading cards and collectibles, to strengthen the supply chain management and improve retail fulfillment. This move aims to address ongoing stock shortages for official Pokemon products. Other major distributors include MJ Holding Company and authorized distributors like ACD Distribution. So, yeah, I mean, it makes sense, right? Take control of getting your stuff out to where you want it when you want it there. Interesting. Let's talk top 5, buddy.
Yes, sir. So, wrapping up. So we'll start at number 5. I'm gonna tell you now. You guys know I've been around since the beginning, so there's a lot of Gen 1 in here, but there are a couple things. But first one I'm gonna kick off with number 5 is gonna be Gengar. Gengar is one of, I would say honestly, probably one of the more popular Pokemon that has been around since the beginning. Gengar is a ghost type. So if you played the games, physical attacks, things like that don't work on him. For me, Gengar is one of those that has kind of developed a personality throughout the whole entire the years of Pokemon. So obviously, Ash, for the majority of everybody, is the person that you know as the main character of the show. He still never caught them all, by the way, but he still caught some of the ones that he never did, and Gengar was one of them.
Let me tell you something. I don't know if I am proud or disappointed that I knew that was Gengar. I don't know.
I kind of expect you to. I feel like you would know some of the originals just from proxy. I guess I don't know.
Yeah, just proximity.
Than anything else. But Gengar, one of the more solid Pokemon over the 30 years of release. So one of my favorites to go from. Number 4 is Mewtwo. Obviously, another Gen 1 Pokemon. Mewtwo became popular right from the very first movie. To this day, honest truth, is probably still one of the most powerful Pokemon in existence. There's only been a few appearances of Mewtwo through the entire series. Obviously, the movie, a couple episodes, actually 2 movies. I take that back. 2 movies and a very small snippet in the show. Mewtwo is psychic. Psychic is one of those types that is just almost damn near unstoppable. And when you put it behind some, like Mewtwo, of course, was created, hence the name Mewtwo. Mew is the original. The power that Mewtwo absorbs is just absolutely insane. Being able to see him fight on screen, fighting Mew in that first movie, that's my childhood. Like the first movie, like always loved Mewtwo, and that was another one of those cards that was always hard to get as well too. But Mewtwo for my number 4. Number 3. Dang, I should have had Case Things in the last couple of these, but whatever. Number 3 is going to be Greninja.
Hold on. I was gonna say that's a ninja joint. I was gonna say I know this.
Yeah, Greninja.
Greninja.
This is actually from Generation 6 of Pokemon. So there was I did keep up for a good while, but for the most reason, like what you just got excited for, Ninja Pokemon. He's so quick, he's so fast, he's agile. Water Shuriken. So, like, it's hard for me. Like, you have to see Greninja on screen to kind of understand why this dude is a threat. By all means, probably not going to be able to take on a Mewtwo. I will still say that straight up for it. But very entertaining to watch. Greninja is the reason why Ash finally won. Well, part of the reason Ash finally won a championship in the world of Pokemon. If you've seen him, like, absolutely amazing when it comes time for battles. I knew this one for you probably would be one that you would be kind of interested in, just with the ninja aspect of it. It's clean.
If there was a frog type, I would have said he was a frog type.
You are 100% correct. When you look at the evolution line, you can see it more in the beginning with the first stage until it gets to this one. But nah, you're right on the money.
All right, I'm in there. We're gonna have to do something around this. You just have to put him in front of me and let me guess at him or something.
And just guess it. Who's that Pokemon? Are you gonna do
that? I'm down. I'm down. But like I don't know if I need like the silhouettes, but like, you
know. My number 2 is Lucario. Fighting type. Lucario is just an absolute menace of an opponent to be put in front of. Hands for days. This is another one that I think you would actually enjoy watching on screen. One thing I didn't mention about all these, and this is just like an ironic thing, every single one that I'm going to name actually has mega versions of themselves. So there's mega evolutions for all of these. A lot of the more popular Pokemon got mega evolutions. Now with the newer games that are out, you're starting to see a lot of the ones that you probably didn't think they were going to get mega evolutions start to get them now. But Lucario is one that has been around for a good while, being a Gen 4 Pokemon. So there's been different variations of the mega evolution that you can see. Really the newest one being introduced in the new ZA game. Fighting Pokemon for me for the longest necessarily wasn't like my necessarily forte. I don't know why, it just didn't resonate with me. But for some reason, because Lucario kind of was a hybrid fighting / steel type, I think that may have given him a little bit more of an interest to me. In playing the Pokemon trading card game, Lucario is probably one of my absolute favorite decks to play. So I feel like he's grown on me in different ways outside of just within the video game in the show as well too. But number 2 gotta be my Lucario. And number 1, I feel like the majority of people, probably because I've talked about it numerous times. number one of all time is got to be Charizard. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about this. I am diehard Gen 1 fan. Charizard was my boy growing up with. I started with Charmander, evolved to Charmeleon, went to Charizard. There's just this bond that I have to Charizard that is just unparalleled to any of the rest of them. Charizard is a fire / flying type. So there's a lot of advantages that he has that a lot of other Pokemon just can't keep up with. He's quick, he's fast, he's agile. Strength wise, it's just the sheer fire that you get from him. No pun intended, honestly. It's kind of in there for it, but Charizard has just been my go-to since day one. If there was a way to be able to get him in any of the games, listen. Charizard got transferred from Pokemon Red all the way up until I can't even think of when I stopped trading to keep the same. I kept the same Charizard probably through maybe 6 or 7 generations of the games. And then I think there came a time where either you couldn't trade or there was a breakdown somewhere where I couldn't get them from one of the older games to one of the newer games, so I had to start over on there for it. But yeah, Charizard from day one has been my go-to forever, and that will never change. Charizard number one, best of all time.
Why do you hate Pikachu?
I don't hate Pikachu. I love Pikachu.
He's
I
not
love
even
Pikachu.
in your top 5.
Listen, Pikachu's popular obviously because of the whole Ash thing. Don't get me wrong. Pikachu's great. I love Pikachu. Just not necessarily my favorite.
All right. That's fair. I like it. I can't tell you one way or another.
Heather says ability to inflict burn.
Which is
in the game.
That statement can be taken a lot of ways. However,
to clarify, when you use a fire attack, it has the ability to burn your opponent, and then it slowly drains away their energy after a certain amount of turns. So, just like any other burn in a Final Fantasy, any other one named, exact same concept.
It's poison. It's burn instead of poison. Yeah. I mean, look, I appreciate it. I appreciate the list. They're all. Lucario's probably the one I'm the least familiar with, but they're all ones that I know, and I would have known the names of for the most part.
I think so.
So solid list. You know what I'm saying? I like it. I'm looking forward to Friday when you're streaming the Pokemon 30-year thing live. I'm looking forward to getting those texts from you in all caps. I know, bro. You know what I mean? So I 30 years of Pokemon is one of those things, bro, that it ages you real quick. You know what I'm saying? Real quick. It ages you.
I'm super excited for Friday and everything that they're potentially going to announce. Supposedly there's been another leak. If it is, cool, but at this point we'll get to Friday. Otherwise they're going to end up having to show the presentation a little bit earlier if things keep coming out the woodwork with the way it's been doing. For those that are Pokemon fans, just to give you this whole entire week, there's a lot of different places that are celebrating Pokemon Day in various ways. So if you are buying Pokemon cards just like me, almost every retail outlet is doing something this week and releasing current card sets in different various ways. Places that never sold cards are now selling cards. Aldi's just put in their actual ad that you would look in for your groceries that they're going to have Pokemon cards apparently tomorrow morning when they open their doors. It's crazy. It's crazy.
I've had enough.
You'll never.
I did see that Veronica Taylor was doing like an auction or something. I think Thursday, like the day
I did
before.
see. Mm-hmm.
So look, shout out to Veronica Taylor, the original voice of Ash. We had a great panel with her at a Stellar Con. Was that last year? I guess that was last year.
That was last year.
So yeah, she was great. She's awesome. So make sure you jump in and check that out. Maybe we'll repost our time with her, since we're coming up on this event. Look, jokes. Let's get into honorable mentions. I know you said you don't really have any honorable mentions for your Pokemon list,
I'm good
but
on that side.
what I will say is that look, with all of the news that came out, between PlayStation and Xbox and all the shenanigans or whatever, today
I do have one. Once you do, go for it. After you.
Today we did finally get a release date for Insomniac's Wolverine, Insomniac's Marvel's Wolverine. For PlayStation 5 comes out September 15th. No pomp, no circumstance. It was literally just like a 7-second trailer that was like, let's just get this over with. Show Wolverine and show the date. Like, that's it. Which is different. A different way to do things. I feel like some of that is on the heels of what just happened at Bluepoint. They were like, we probably shouldn't make, make a big deal and kind of, step on that. So that happened. Sony announced that they will be officially rebooting the Spider-Man movie franchise.
Wait, excuse me?
That's what they said today. Starting brand new people. Look, are they spilling the beans on something that's happening with Doomsday? Probably.
Probably. Kevin Feige just picked his phone up. What in the what?
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, man.
That's crazy.
And here's the thing. This may not matter to most of y'all, but let me tell you something. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 is coming back to theaters March 13th. And I ain't figured out how, but I'm finna be there.
I don't.
I'm finna be in that joint in all its ninja rap glory. Which, by the way, I hate that song. I don't think it's a dope song. But when that happens in the theater, I'm gonna be on it. Oh, I'm gonna be speaking it. You know what I'm saying? I don't know the words to it, but I know the ninja rap part. That's the only thing that matters. You know what I'm saying? But I'm finna do that, man. Like, you know what I'm saying? Full HD Ninja Turtles, man. I was just at Big Lick and Ernie Reyes Jr. was there, and like just so it was the original April O'Neil was there, like kind of feeling like TMNT nostalgic, if you will. You said you had an honorable mention. What you got?
I do have an honorable mention. This will be for my wrestling folk. So, if you've been keeping up over the last few weeks, AJ Styles is officially retiring because of losing his match. We know how retirements are in wrestling, but this one seems like this could actually be a legitimate thing. On Raw, they did a special presentation for AJ Styles in his home state of Georgia for his retirement. But the biggest thing happened is when that was over, The Undertaker came out and officially invited AJ Styles in being inducted into the 2026 WWE Hall of Fame.
I mean, that pretty much means your retirement is real.
Yeah, and that's another way to keep him without having to go to other companies and do stuff as well too. So, shout out to that. Like, it's funny that I don't want to say funny. It's interesting that AJ is being inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame way before there's some other places that obviously he's in the E. They're not going to be able to do it to be able to induct him into the Hall of Fame. But that is just an amazing accomplishment for AJ Styles, for someone that has been in the business for probably damn near 30 years almost. One, being able to retire under your own power, and then being able to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. Two amazing feats that unfortunately some people just have not been able to do. I'm in for it. Still crazy. AJ Styles got inducted before John Cena or The Rock, which is pretty cool.
You know, they still doing other stuff. So, well, he got invited to be inducted.
Well, let me not say
he's not in.
He will
So
be
that doesn't
inducted
mean-
at WrestleMania. But so, yeah.
Yeah, but both of them could be too. I'm just they both could be.
This could be to do something like that. This would probably be one of the biggest class inductions if you include like some of the names like that in it for it. Normally, there's like one major name that gets inducted each year. But to say like an AJ Styles and then potentially like alongside like a John Cena or The Rock, that kind of changes things up a little bit. So this class could be really like a really super important class.
I dig it. I could see Cena before The Rock.
Mm-hmm.
Oddly enough,
I agree with that.
But Cena's retired, and The Rock isn't. Technically. All right, look, let's close this thing out. We got some upcoming events. Blurcon is not this weekend, but next weekend. So March 8th through 10th, we will be in the building as press, doing what we do as press. Friday, we have our Being Comfortable Being a Geek panel, which will be more focused on the Black experience of being a geek. Obviously, at a place like Blurcon, that makes sense. We want to be able to speak to people about that and like what that means, and so we have some really good stuff lined up for that panel. That panel is on Friday the 8th at 8 p.m. It's in the Richmond room, which is inside the Hilton, not in the Hyatt Regency where the other main stuff is happening. So just keep that in mind. By all means, come and check us out. If you're going to be at Blurcon, come holler at us. The following weekend, we have Awesome Con. So that is March 13th through 15th. And we will also be in the building there as press. Jokes, you have an announcement for a panel for that, correct?
Yes, we do. So, our good friends, Ben and Mike, who you guys have seen us numerous times on the show, do their panel Awesome. Not this show, but the Finisher podcast.
Right.
We'll be doing their Awesome Mania panel once again at Awesome Con, and they've extended the invite for me and Marcus to join alongside with them. So that panel, actually, I'm going to give y'all, because I have it right now. It is going to be Friday, March 13th at 3:30 in room 204. It says 204 ABC, so it sounds like maybe that is the whole entire room and not being split up, or maybe it's in one of them. Don't know that just quite yet, but we will fill you in on the rest of that.
You might need that space if you have to wrestle. You know what I'm saying? Who knows? Chair shots. Look for our spoiler boys on the Blade trilogy. We decided to go back, revisit Blade, kind of look at what is technically the very beginning of the MCU now. Doomsday coming, so look for that from us this Friday. Thursday, if you're a Patreon member, it'll be in Patreon. And that does it for tonight's show. I want to thank all of you for hanging out with us, spending some time with us this evening. We greatly appreciate it. It's just a regular Tuesday where there's like a state of address or something like that happened today or whatever. And well, I mean, like, again, you could be anywhere, but you're here. A special shout out to the lurkers. Those of you who are hanging, listening, and not commenting, we love and appreciate you just the same. I'm very, very much looking forward to seeing a lot of you out in the world, in public. So again, if you're coming to Blurcon, if you see us, please shout at us. If you're coming to Awesome Con, if you see us, please shout at us. We can always use that in-person love when we're out and about. Jokes.
Yes, sir.
Tell the people what I need them to know.
Remember, y'all, just because you have a well thought out plan doesn't make it a good idea.
With that, we're out. Toodles and loose. grabbing snacks.
Tighten it up. Get your wing up and down.